This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
As the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank are continuing for the third day, Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi has reaffirmed the support of the President Tebboune for the efforts of the IDB group to promote development and shared prosperity. Diplomacy Chief Ahmed Attaf has taken part in a coordination meeting in Brussels between African Foreign Affairs Ministers and the President of the EU Commission, Mahmoud Hadi Yusuf. In Gaza, at least 50 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes amid continuing bombardments by the Israeli occupying forces on the enclave, despite mounting international pressure to halt military operations and allow unimpeded deliveries of aid. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Mariam Bershi. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the Ambassador of State of Qatar to Algiers, Abdulaziz bin Ali Ahmed Nama Al Nama, who presented him with an invitation from the Emir of the State of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, to attend the World Summit for Social Development to be held in Qatar. The Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has taken part in a coordination meeting in Brussels between African Foreign Affairs Ministers and the President of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Hadi Yusuf, ahead of the proceedings of the third meeting of African Union and European Union Foreign Affairs Ministers, scheduled for today, Wednesday. This meeting was devoted to coordination positions and unifying points of view between African countries on the various areas of partnership between the AU and the EU in order to present European partners with concrete and precise proposals in line with the development objectives of the African continent and which meet the aspirations of its countries and peoples. Earlier, the Minister of State has held talks in Brussels with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, Mohamed Yislam Baysat, on the eve of their participation to the proceeding of the third meeting of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the African Union and European Union. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has held talks in Brussels with the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Adri Sibiha. The talks focused on the various dimensions of the relations of friendship and cooperation linking Algeria and Ukraine, as well as on the means of injecting greater dynamism into them. The Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense Army General Said Changreha, has paid a working visit of inspection to the 3rd Military Region. The Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Nunes Magraman, has received the Vice President of the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, Gilles Carbonnier, in Algiers on the sidelines of his participation in the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank Group. The meeting was an opportunity to highlight the close relations between Algeria and the ICRC and examine ways to enhance cooperation in international humanitarian law. Both sides also discussed recent regional and international developments, especially in Western Sahara, the occupied Palestinian territories, and the Sahel. Earlier, Mr. Magraman also received the Deputy Director General of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, Abdul Hakim Rajab El-Wa'ir, on a visit to Algeria to take part in the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank. The proceedings of the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank are continuing today for the third day, running at the Abdelatif Rahel International Conference Center here in Algiers under the patronage of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. Under the instruction of the President of the Republic, Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi has chaired at the International Conference Center the opening of the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank hosted by Algeria under the patronage of President Tebboune. In his speech, the Prime Minister reaffirmed the support of the President for the efforts of the IDB to promote development and shared prosperity, as well as to strengthen cooperation and integration between the countries of the Islamic world. The Prime Minister recalled that Algeria was one of the first countries to adopt the idea of creating a development bank to support growth and contributing to the enshrinement of support or to the enshrinement of the will for cooperation between the people of the Muslim Ummah or nation, thus hailing the group's achievements.
Algeria's hosting of the group's annual meetings for the third time reflects its firm belief in the importance of Islamic cooperation and solidarity for achieving integrated economic growth. Algeria was among the first countries to embrace the idea of establishing a development bank to support progress and significantly promote cooperation among the peoples of the Islamic nation. Today, more than 50 years after its creation, we witness the significant achievements of the bank as a leading financial institution in the framework of South-South cooperation.
He added that the international context in which these annual meetings are being held marked today by exceptional circumstances and profound and unbridled geopolitical changes at both regional and international level.
These annual meetings are being held in an international context marked by the exceptional circumstances, profound and rapid geopolitical and global transformations, as well as unprecedented economic and trade tensions. These developments have had negative repercussions on the economic and social conditions of the Islamic countries, making joint development efforts within multilateral frameworks, particularly South-South cooperation, more urgent than ever. Such collaboration is essential to overcoming obstacles, fostering the development and prosperity of our Islamic peoples, and providing our economies with the means to adapt the profound changes shaping the global economic and political system.
Mr. Harbawi also referred to the genocidal war the Palestinian people have been subjected to for more than a year and a half, in addition to the systematic destruction of public infrastructure by the Zionist occupation.
What the brotherly Palestinian people have been subjected to, a war of extermination for more than a year and a half, and the deliberate destruction of infrastructure and public facilities by the Israeli occupation, is taking place amid a dreadful silence from the international community, which remains incapable of putting an end to the Israeli machine of destruction. This compels me to call for the need to embody the principle of solidarity and cooperation upon which the Islamic Development Bank Group was founded, by enhancing developmental support for the brotherly Palestinian people through the mobilization of all the group's mechanisms to help them continue their resilience, with a particular focus on vital and priority sectors such as health, education and food.
That was Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi. An official agreement signing ceremony has been held as part of the 2025 annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank in the presence of the President of the bank, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman Al-Jasser. 50 memoranda of understanding have been signed between different banks from the 57 member countries of the Islamic Development Bank. Asabakar reports.
The MOU signed between different banks, institutions and companies of the member countries of the Islamic Development Bank are worth $1.2 billion, 6 million of which are granted by the Islamic Development Bank. The MOUs were described by participating experts as pivotal for supporting institutions and small and medium enterprises to meet the bank's goals in terms of development and sustainability. Meanwhile, the Halal Economy Leadership Forum was organized to emphasize the growing importance of halal products as a powerful driver of global trade and economic growth. It aimed to showcase the expanding market opportunities across sectors such as food, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and tourism, attracting investment from both Muslim-majority and non-Muslim countries. The forum provided a platform to share insights on how to capitalize on the halal economy's potential while ensuring compliance with ethical and religious standards. Dr. Abdul Hakim Alawar, Assistant Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, highlighted the importance of halal products globally and their economic impact in both Muslim and non-Muslim communities.
This sector not only represents deeply rooted cultural and religious tradition, but also a vibrant, expanding market that increases issues of food security, international trade, sustainability, and ethical food production. As you all know, the halal products, meaning permissible in Arabic, refers to what is allowed under the Islamic law. In the context of food, Halal rules governs not just the ingredients, but also the process of production, slaughter, the handling of animal-based products, and also the financing that goes into it.
Earlier in the morning, a conference was held under the theme Sovereign Sukuk, a strategic lever for national financing, exploring the growing role of Sukuk in shaping sustainable national development. Discussions focused on the strategic importance of sovereign Sukuk in diversifying funding sources for governments, reducing reliance on conventional debt, and promoting Islamic finance principles. Another panel themed Building a Sustainable Culture, Strategies and Ethics was held as part of the ICD's broader sustainability and ESG awareness program, which supports the integration of sustainable practices across operations. The Secretary of the Global Flagship Initiative for Food Security, Mr. Conrad Wayne, who took part in the panel, shed light on how the private sector can be effectively engaged to make large-scale commitments that promote sustainable and climate-smart food systems in developing regions.
So in general, as you say, the private sector, to mobilize engagement of the private sector is a key pillar of the flagship. And first of all, I don't see this only financially. I see this also, in terms of research, in terms of their expertise on the ground. So at the moment, we have, for example, two big multinationals that are members in the flagship. That's Bayer, a German company, and then PepsiCo from the United States. And we have very specific discussions on projects that we want to do with them. But again, it's not only a financial contribution, it's we're also speaking, for example, with Nestle. Nestle is spending billions on research, and there's a lot of, valuable input I think they can provide.
Let's recall that currently a conference on trade facilitation and regional integration is being held as part of the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank, to be followed by another one on the third ISDB Group Innovation and Startup Speech Competition. Asia Bakar to Radio Algeria International, the International Conference Center, Algiers.
An Algerian delegation made up of representatives of the Foreign Affairs Ministry and Algiers Permanent Mission in New York is taking part as from today in the proceedings of the annual seminar of the Special Committee on Decolonization, C24, held till Friday in Dili, Timor-Leste. Moving on to the situation in the Middle East, in Gaza, at least 55 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes amid continuing bombardments by the Israeli occupying forces on the enclave, despite mounting international pressure to halt military operations and allow unimpeded deliveries of aid. After a meeting of the European foreign ministers, the European Union said it would examine a part governing its political and economic ties with the Israeli occupation due to the catastrophic situation in Gaza. International pressure on the occupation has mounted in recent days amid complaints about the lack of humanitarian aid reaching Gaza, and as the Israeli occupation launched a new military offensive in the enclave. The United Nations, for its part, said that no aid has yet been distributed in the Gaza Strip, a day after the occupation allowed limited humanitarian deliveries to resume after an 11-week-long blockade on the Palestinian enclave, where experts warn famine now looms. The UK suspended free trade talks with the Israeli occupation and hit West Bank settlers with sanctions less than a day after vowing concrete actions if it didn't stop its new military offensive in Gaza. The European Union has announced the lifting of all economic sanctions against Syria. At the end of a meeting of the foreign ministers of the 27-nation bloc, the head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, stressed that the bloc wants to help the Syrian people rebuild a new, inclusive and peaceful Syria. At a time when the European Union has announced the lifting of all economic sanctions against Damascus, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that Syria could be weeks away from civil war. The European Union's policy shift comes after an announcement by the United States last week that it is lifting sanctions on Damascus. Syria's Foreign Minister Hassad al-Shabani thanks the EU on saying the decision would bolster Syria's security and stability. That's it for today's news bulletin. I invite you to listen to an interview with Mr. Sami El-Suleimi, Acting Director General of the Islamic Development Bank Institute, conducted by my colleague Asia Bakar. Stay tuned.